animals. Recently, in his authorship, a book chapter entitled Additive-Based Structure and Bioactivity Modification of Phosphate Classes, published by Springer Limited, Singapore. He successfully concluded a research project at the Center for Nanoscience and Technology, which was sponsored by the Indira Gandhi Center for Atomic Research, Kalpakkam. We are honored to have you on the stage, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, one and all present here. Good morning, one and all present here. I assume my very good. I assume my warm greetings, and I feel privileged to be here to be part of this beautiful occasion. And I'm honored, and I'd like to express my gratitude to the organizers of the conference, particularly to my friend Dr. Sakti Pandit, who is organizing this beautiful event. So let us go to our topic. Today I'm going to tell about the bioactive materials and its design and its developments and what are the mechanisms, bioactive mechanism behind the materials and its decoys developments. So such a details I'm going to start to discuss here. So regarding the biomaterials, a lot of definitions are available already. What is meant by basically biomaterials? Actually today my topic is bioactive components, bioactive elements. But it is also one such a kind of material belongs to the material sense of biomaterial. So first we should understand what is meant by biomaterials. So biomaterials is any kind of materials which we are developing intended to interact with the human body or living object, which will facilitate to extend life, the human life or the living object, the life of the living object. So in such a way, we are having a lot of biomaterials. It is a field, even though it has been established during the year 1859, I think, with a wooden peg, with a thread, wooden thread. So, like it has been utilized for the centuries back. 19th century itself it has been established. But after 1950, I think, after 1950 only, we were able to size the department of material science in the form of biomaterials. So in biomaterials, a lot of various materials are available, like the part of our human body. In our human body, it is basically structured by the skeleton system. In our skeleton system itself, it has different parts. Even it is a bone, it is made up of the calcium phosphate basic element with the collagen combination. But the property of the bone is not even, not same, not similar throughout our body. The cerebral bone in our ear is quite different property when we compare with the skull or thigh. So the mechanical property, that means the density and its elastic property, fracture toughness, rigidity, everything will be different. So if you want to develop a supplement for such a material, we have to look into deeper for developing more detailed type of materials. So not only in skeleton system or bioceramic like calcium phosphate, etc. Polymer materials. Polymer materials also will be used nowadays in extensive manner. So the vascular grafts will be developed by using the polymer grafts and variety of materials, not only metals, steel plates, variety of steels are utilized, have been implanted. So in such a way, like our body having the different portions in our different structure, so we need to develop different kind of biomaterials. So based on the different biomaterials, natural biomaterials, basically it has been classified into three types basically, classified into three types generally. Those are the three generations: first generation, second generation, and third generation. Now we are in the third generation stage. So it has been established during the 1950, I think. So initially, right from the 1950 to 60, 1960, one type of diameters have been established, that is bioinert. Those are chemically stable. The, those materials will not be elicit any response after implanting into the human body. So such a materials are called bioinert. It won't interact with the human body fluids or blood or any living tissue, and it will be stable as long as it is remain within the body itself. Such a materials we are calling as a bioinert. After 1960, 1970, I think, after 1970, the trials were started to establish new variety of materials called bioactive materials. So bioactive materials are something different from bioinert. So bioinert doesn't exhibit any kind of response or reaction. No chemical reactions have been found after implanting into the body. Whereas in bioactive material, it will be different. It will show some responses. It will exhibit some responses. That is our purpose. So it should exhibit certain response and it should react with the human body. It should react with the body fluid so that we have to get some promising results. So in such a way, bioactive materials have been established right from 1972 till 2000, the year 2000. After the year 2000, another kind of materials have been established, that is third generation. That is we are in the stage we are living now. In the third generation, the bioresorbable materials have been established. Not only from that, it is developed in the form of tissue engineering and setting and etc. So on and so on. So in such a way, the development of biomaterials have been established and detailing in the recent times. So it is also it is a multidisciplinary. That's what I told you already. Not only one kind of materials will not satisfy all the type of requirements, like clinical needs. So we need to develop more variety of materials with the help of different composites, a different combination of elements, inorganic, organic, and steel. Such a composite nowadays, the nanoparticles also will be employed to develop a new variety of material. So it is a uh, multidisciplinary aspect, and this is only I talked so far. So these are some examples, the images I have shown. So these are all the materials that have been used in the recent days for clinical trials. And this is a slide we can understand the material classification with biological responses. This is only I told you toxic. If it is toxic, we have to understand one thing. If any material, unwanted material or any foreign element, if it inserted into the body, will our body respond or will it allow to remain the foreign object to be inside in our body? It will never it will accept. It will show some adverse effect and it will expel such a foreign element. So if our body has, if we want to use any biomaterial to be implanted within our body immune system should allow, our body immune system should accommodate such a foreign element. So in such a way we have to prepare. So the toxic means the any foreign element, even a stone is inserted in our leg, in our foot. What will happen? It will in the reason in the due course it will come out automatically by our immune system. So in such a way, if you want to insert purposefully any foreign element within our structure, within our human body, living structure, it should be accommodated, it should be admitted by our immune system. So in such a way, we can classify the toxical responses, biological responses. Toxic means it never allow, it will expel the external body, and if it is inert, that is I told you already, minimum immune response. With the minimum immune response, it will permit to keep inside. But immediately what happened after the implantation, around the inert material, there will be a thick fibrous capsule of tissues will be generated, and that will prevent if any kind of reactions, if any kind of adverse effect exhibited by the foreign element, that should be prevented. In order to prevent such a any external influence of the by the foreign element, a thick fibrous capsule will be developed over the implant material, and whenever where long as it remains within our body system, that thick capsule will remain as it is. It won't permit any kind of response of the inert material to make communicate with them, to interact with our body. Whereas bioresorbable is another kind of material. This is the this is not next to bioactive material. Bioresorbable means after the implantation of the resorbable material within our body, it will react with the human body, and in due course it will merge in our body itself. It will it will automatically replace its own structure, and it is remodified into our human system. In such a way, biocompatible. Biocompatible means that is also like bioinert. If it should not exhibit any adverse effect, it should be compatible. It should be admitted by our immune system. So bioactive is the material which we are going to deal today. So this is no adverse immune response. There will be some response we can find, but it won't be in such a huge amount, and it will not that means prevent such a implant material to get interact with the human body, and tissues form chemical bond in due course after the implantation. The tissues will be developed. It will make a chemical reaction with the body fluids and blood cells and the surrounding tissues, etc. And in due course, those will make a chemical bond, developing the chemical bond, and they will there will be a tissue generation, and we can find at one stage the bioactive material will remain as it is. It won't modify in high amount, whereas it will have the chemical bonding with the neighbor tissues and biological fluids. Such a material only we are going to discuss today. So this is only we have covered. So these are the details I told you already, bio first generation, second generation, and okay. Implant mechanism. This is only I told near unit porous bioactive. Porous means like a cake, what we are eating. So cake it is a material like porous. It's a sponge like. In such a way we are developing certain material. Such a porous material will remain as it is. That will be like a inert material, and that will permit the surrounding tissues to develop their growth inside the material. So that will merge, that will permit the surrounding fluids and the chemical bonding to extend to get through the material, so that it will merge with the living object where it is implanted. So this is one of the images we can see. This is polytetrafluoroethylene device. Have been implanted. This is a bio inert material. Have been implanted within the body. So over which we can see how the thick fibrous capsule have been developed. Dense fibrous capsule have been developed. And this is the loose connective tissues. This is the living tissues next to the fibrous capsule. And in such a way, only the material will be connected. So here, the PTFE device will remain as it is. That doesn't have any response with the living system, but it will remain as long as without any adverse effect. It can remain within the body, but without any communication with the body. But it will be permitted by the immune system of the human skeleton, human living organism. So this is again we are telling the morphological fixation is already I told you. This is the bio-inert mechanism. This is only have been developed established in the first generation. Biological fixation. This is only the topic we are going to deal today. Biological fixation means it has to respond to the human body, and through which we have to establish certain kind of reactions, the useful reactions to the body for the benefit of the body. And resorbable material, there is one I told you already. So it will merge, it will degrade totally, and it will merge with the human body material where we are implanted. Okay. So this, you can ask me, this is a kind of job must be done by the medical practitioner during the clinical trial. I am a material scientist. I am coming belongs to the community of physics. So what is my duty here? How I have been involved in such a research. So here we are talking about the frontier materials, the development of frontier materials. So our research is to develop the bioactive glasses. So we have prepared variety of various kinds of bioactive glasses. Glasses means this solid material doesn't have any crystalline nature. It is amorphous. So in our research, we will prepare a series of variety of bioactive glasses with different composition. What is the purpose? We have to make such a bioactive glasses to be a supplement material for the bone, human bone. To be a supplement for the human bone in case of damage or in case of any breakdown, if any happen in such a place, that bioactive glasses has to be implanted inside the bone. So if it is so, means what is the necessary conditions to be satisfied? So that material, what we are going to implant inside the bone, must have the similar composition, chemical composition as that of the bone where we are implanting. Because here in my hand, the bone structure and its mechanical properties and everything, every characteristics are different when we are compared with the cervical bone in our ear, in our skull, in our thigh. Everything is different. So the combination may be same, similar, but I have to match the properties, the mechanical properties, density and the rigidity modulus or elastic modulus, fracture toughness, strength, everything, hardness, everything must be matched where they have been implanted. So in such a way, we have to identify suitable bioactive glasses. So what we are having as a trial, we are developing different kinds of bioactive glasses with different composition. So already it has been established during the year 1984 by Larry L. Hinch, UK scientist. He was the inventor of the bioactive glasses, and he has developed a glass silicon with a silicon groups. Silicon is the basic host material to which the another components have been involved. So in my work, I have selected the phosphate based glasses. So that is different from silicon. So phosphate is a basic host network that will provide the glass matrix in which the calcium oxide and the sodium oxide and magnesium, silver and chromium oxide, copper oxide, titanium, everything, variety of materials we can include it as a trail. So by making such a different combination, I have to study how the properties are different, how the properties are varying based on the composition. So this is my duty. So for which I have prepared a selective composition in weight percentage, and I have melted in the based on the thermogrammetric analysis. I have obtained the in which melting temperature the composite, the taken the chemical composite, the substance may be melt, and after it may be around 1000 degree or 1200, 1500, depends on the composite element what we have selected in the composite. So in such a temperature, in such a high temperature, we have to melt the composite material, chemicals, and we have to pour such a chemical, the melter, in a particular dye, and we have to make by rapid melt quench technique. Immediately we have to quench the heat energy, and we have to prepare a solid material. So that solid material, after obtaining it, we have to study the mechanical properties. Elastic, what is the density of the material, what is the elastic properties, Young's modulus, bulk modulus, and rigidity modulus, and Poisson ratio, etc., etc. So every mechanical property we have to analyze, and we have to compare where in which bone structure. I already told you in our skeleton system, every part of the body, every part of the structure having different structures, having different composition, having different properties. So in such a way, we have to identify where it may be suitable to to be implanted. So after identifying that, we have to go. That is my part is over. I am the material scientist preparing, and I have studied the mechanical and the elastic properties, etc., physical properties. I have studied. After that, one important thing it must have. It has to be optimized. Its bioactivity, whether it is bioactive or is it applicable or admittable into the living system or not. We have to optimize. How it can be established or analyzed through the studies in vitro observation. So in vitro observation is in which we have to provide an artificial setup that to observe its bioactive responses. That should be mimicked. That should be imitated. What the material is supposed to have within our body itself. If it is implanted, how it can respond. That optimization we should estimate before implant. So that is the kind of observation we are doing through in vitro observation. So in which we will prepare the SBF solution. SBF means simulated body fluid. The body fluid will be similar, will be same as that of our blood plasma, human blood plasma. So human blood plasma will consist different ionic components, different elements are there. Where is it are there? So the artificial fluid, what we are preparing, SBF, that should be mimicked, that should be imitated. Whatever the concentration, ionic concentration, we can find in the blood plasma. So after preparing the simulated blood plasma, I have to immerse the synthesized glass for uh, sample for 21 days, and during the 21 days itself, I have to optimize what is the ionic concentration ratio changes every day. How the ionic concentration of the solution is varying every day through the period 21 days. I have to optimize the solubility of the glass also. I will take the sample and I will optimize what is the weight loss in every day, how it is reacted with the aqueous medium. So in such details, we have to optimize. So during the optimization, after the 21 days period, I have to take away the immersive sample and I should optimize whether is there any coating is deposited over the surface of the glass material or not. So such a glass, if in case of any precipitation is found, in case of any precipitation or any layer is coated on the surface of the glass implant, that is called hydroxyapatite. And we have to ensure what is the ratio of calcium and phosphate. It should be exactly remain 1.67. That is the composition we can identify in our human bone structure. The ratio of calcium and phosphate should be limited with 1.67. So I have to identify whether the calcium phosphate ratio is remain at 1.67 after the in vitro analysis completion. So if so, if I am able to identify such a formation of deposition of such a hydroxyapatite layer with a hydroxyapatite, that means the calcium phosphate ratio of 1.67, then we can ensure if the sample material is implanted within our body, it won't elicit any adverse effect. It will be accommodate our body. That is the kind of analysis, the kind of confirmation we can make after the in vitro analysis. So this is the dissolution mechanism. That's what I said you. That is during the dissolution mechanism is very important because after the implantation of the foreign element, it should dissolve. It should react with the human body fluid. It should react and it should make some ionic exchange with the surrounding fluid and surrounding tissue. So through which only it can extend the chemical bonding and the tissue generation may be possible. So such a dissolution is must exhibit such an optimum rate of dissolution that the prepared sample should exhibit. We have to ensure the results. So this is the bioactive mechanism, what I am telling you so far. So this is if you are going the vertical go through into the mechanism, what is happening in the bioactivity, what are implanting the glass material into the human body. First the glass surface is initial stage is zero. Then after the implantation, it will immediately react with the body fluid. It will exchange some of the ions, positive ions, with the body fluid. Even the body fluid also having certain concentration of ionic concentration. So the exchange of ions, initially the cations will be sorted to exchange with the body fluid, and during the exchange of ions only, the dissolution will be sorted. It is a active glucose. So aqueous medium in the surrounding fluid, body fluid, it will exchange the ion material, ionic component, and through which it can the dissolution started. And due to the dissolution process, the structure of the glass material, internal material will be modified. It will be differ, it will be damaged to some extent. It will modify, and so that there will be a after the due to the exchange of ionic components from the material, implanted material to the surrounding and the surrounding to the implanted material, there will be a aqueous repolymerization will be occur over the material surface, implanted material surface, and some calcium phosphate amorphous precipitation will be established initially. Amorphous precipitation will be established initially. That is in nucleation site where the crystalline, the calcium phosphate crystal may be grown further. And the nucleation and crystallization of calcium phosphate to hydrocarbonate apatite. The hydrocarbonate apatite is the final element, maybe that is we need to develop over the glass surface. And I observe for biologic material, protein, etc. And action of macrophages. Macrophages means that is a kind of immune system exhibited by our white blood cells. So that will if any foreign body is implanted inserted into our living system, that macrophages will respond immediately. So that will admit, and the attachment of the stem cell means integrin it's called. So whatever, if you want to develop the tissues over the implant material, the tissues will be grown. So the tissue growth should be done by the osteoblast cells. Osteoblast is the basic cell element which may cause for the tissue generation. And the osteoblast cell should be developed and it should be attached through integrin with the surface of the material. Now, what is we have implanted, and further the cell adhesion and proliferation. That means the cell must be divided into more number. That means there is a development of tissue growth. So cell proliferation must be happen, and further the crystalline matrix will be established over the surface of the material. So this is the growth rate mechanism, bioactive mechanism we are talking about. I am giving the scale in terms of long time. Long time means it is not, all the processes are not in the even time scale. That will be different. Some of the happen, some of the things may occur within 1 or 2 days. Some changes may happen take more days, 10 days or 15 days may take something. Some of the steps may develop after 1 or few months. So that is different. Different parts of time scale we have to follow. So by taking the logarithmic scale, time scale, we are comparing all the time scale time periods into a single clarification. So this is a kind of bioactive spectrum. So we can see in the relative bioactivity, the four, type 3, type 2, type 1, nearly inert, porous. So this is right from the 0 day to 1000 days. How the material, implanted material respond. For bio-inert material, there is no response we can find. For bioactive material, sorry, porous ingrowth material, will have some little bit of biorelative response, and bioactive means somewhat better. That is type 3, what we are talking about. And bioresorbable, that is a new variety of material that is totally dissolved, degrade, and lost its old structure, and it will merge with the human body. So the type 3 only we are talking about. So this is the bioactive material that will remain as it is. but it will have some useful interaction with the human body through it without any adverse effect. But it can be varied. The kind of response may be varied with different composition. That is what I am going to emphasize. So this is the material I studied. What I told you before in vitro study, the surface of the glass. This is the AFM image. And after the implantation, that means after the vitro study, how the structure may be varied. The precipitation of the occur on the calcium phosphate precipitation over the surface, how it is varied. Nearly 54% there will be different, and this is the observation. And this is glass ceramic, another one type. We are talking about the glass so far. Glass is amorphous material. Glass ceramic also, some useful bioactive materials we can find glass ceramics also. What is the difference between glass and glass ceramic? Glass ceramics having the crystalline nature. How we can make the glass materials into glass ceramic? By making the programmed schematic thermal treatment. If you are making a thermal treatment by having decided by through the thermogravimetric analysis, we can make such a thermal treatment plant, and by making such a treatment, we can establish, so we can obtain the glass into the glass ceramic. This is the image I have shown. This is the same images, and that is AF. After the glass ceramics, how the surface is varied. 82% surface modification is occurred during the thermal treatment, and this is all I told you already. And the reason is, so this is the final topic. So tissue generation, that's I told you already in the logarithmic scale. This is a kind of development must happen in the implant material. So if you want to develop a tissue, means there will be a osteoblast cell must has to be proliferate, and it should develop in more numbers, and it should have a useful tissue generation, and with a controlled signal processing in a extracellular matrix in the scaffolds through which this is the collagen scaffold. Over the scaffold, initially the inorganic component, calcium or phosphate or whatever it may be, that should be deposited, and through which only, through the deposition only, we are finally going to optimize or obtain a thick layer of our solid layer of the bone element. So this is the collagen scaffold in the real material. But what is the tissue generation is established nowadays is to develop such a scaffold by using the silk. Silk means the this is the silk of the material, silk material we are using. That is also one of the natural biomaterial. So this is the mulberry plant on which the silkworm is developing. It is developing the cocoon, and by extracting the cocoon layers only, we are getting the fibrous silk. So what is the difference is the collagen, the property of, in order to replace the collagen with the silk. This is our purpose. How the fibrous silk properties are different. It is the tensile strength of the fibrous silk is 500 megapascal before degree. That means it is actual value tensile strength of the collagen is only 5 to 11 megapascal. While comparing with, just to imagine how the tensile strength of the silk material. And after decoming, it extends. It is increasing to 610. Its elastic modulus is 5 gigapascal, whereas the elastic modulus of the collagen is only fraction, 0.008 or something. So such a huge difference we can obtain, we can get by using the silk material. So nowadays the research is going on to develop such a silk material. How the silk material can be developed as a form of the scaffolds on which the tissues can be admitted to generate over it, and finally how the bone can be developed artificially with more stronger structure, with more hardness, with more improved properties. That may how it may be helpful to the human to lead a healthy life throughout his life. This is of the topic I have discussed. So if you have any queries, you can ask me. So this is the conclusion. So bioactive materials we are preparing, and in which we are trying different elements. What is the significance of bioactive materials? So we can develop tailor-made. We can tailor-made the properties. The bioactive material can be developed with the different properties by making the composition different. It's all the properties can be tailor-made as per our desire, as per our need. The clinical trials may be extended to every material. So such a wonderful material, it has been established in the last that means second generation of bioactive biomaterial classification, and so in which we are establishing through the bioactive material to the next generation how the tissue repair and regeneration may be possible with the use of natural biomaterials or natural elements with the tissue engineering. This is the topic I have presented here. If you have any clarifications about the topic, you may ask.
Now I request the head of department physics to.
Thank you.
Now I request the head of department physics to honor the chief guest. Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable words. Now, we are shining the spotlight on Dr. T.C. Sabarikirisan as Assistant Professor, Nanophotonics Laboratory, School of Physics, Bharatdasan University, Trichy. He completed his education in Madurai and Trichinopalli and started his teaching career in 2005. The research group of Nanophotonics Laboratory and School of Physics, Bharatdasan University, headed by Dr. T.C. Sabarikirisan, is engaged in the research of understanding light-matter interaction at nanoscale. He has got 9 awarded research papers and secured top 2% in the World Scientist ranking enlisted by Stanford University. He has made countless research publications and also research presentations. We are privileged to have such a distinguished person among us. May I request your presence, sir?
Now, we are shining the spotlight on Dr. T.C. Sabarikirisan, Assistant Professor, Nanophotonics Laboratory, School of Physics, Bharathasan University, Trichy. We are privileged to have such a distinguished person among us. May I request your presence, sir?
So good morning all. First of all, I take this opportunity to thank the organizers for inviting me to be in your midst. So I start with sorry, right? I'm not comfortable with my throat. Right? Bear with me for the next 20 minutes. Right? I know that hearing such sound through mic will be a very irritating process for your ears. Right? But still then, right? It's a conference pre-committed process, so I have decided to be here. So I have been given 20 to 25 minutes of time. All right. I will rush few of the parts and I will talk what are the major things that you can make a note of it from the research that we do. Right. Okay. So the title go like this, right? We have the plan of talking about dye sensitized solar cells, and interestingly, I have the plan of talking about how spectral converters, when they are included in dye sensitized solar cells, can give you higher efficiency, right? So this will be my plan of talk, right? And based on the time, right, I will try to spend more time on this fourth choice. Right? So almost most of the conferences you attend, right, are focusing on material science. Right? The reason being, materials are always believed to be the symbol of our civilization. Right? We started somewhere else at Stone Age, right, and now we were believed to be in the age of Iron Age. Right? So the materials that we use in common, right, were called to be that particular age. Right? Are we at Iron Age now? Right? That is the point I'm going to begin out with. So we started with Stone Age, then we entered Bronze Age, right? And the science says we were almost reaching the end of Iron Age. The next generation of ages has already begun, right? And we call that particular age to be Graphene Age, right? And that's the reason why wherever you go, you will come across a word called as graphene. Right? So graphene is going to be one material that is going to be everywhere in all the technologies you are going to rely. So the age that you are entering, or the age where we have started, right, civilization at present relies on graphene. And when you have a close look at this discovery of graphene, you will come across a word called as nanoscience. Right? So 20 years back, nanoscience was not a very popular topic. But after the invention of nanoscience, what people understand is it is not required to identify new materials continuously. It is not required to develop new materials for new technologies, because there is plenty of opportunities to know about the materials that we have discovered before. Right? So when you take your materials to the scale of nano, the behavior of the material was totally different. And so people started searching on nano scale, right? And that particular part was going to be a very interesting subject, right? I thought I could give you some time on that. So nano is going to be the branch, right, which we call it as a branch of science, which lies at the scale of 10 power minus 9 meters. So what is 10 power minus 9 meter means that, right, in that particular scale, you can accommodate a maximum of 9 to 10 atoms, because the size of the atom is 10 power minus 10 meter. Right? So when you go for 10 power minus 9 meter, typically what you can expect is, you can expect 3 or 4 atoms placed one after the other, because atoms repel each other. So you can have 3 or 4 atoms. So what is going to be fascinating is, when you go to this particular nanoscale, we observe very interesting characteristics, which was not the characteristic of the same material when they were in the bulk form. And that's the reason why I start with a note. Nanoscience is not the race of finding new materials, rather it is the race of understanding what is the material that we have before. Just to give a quick look, since we have postgraduate student also, I will just give you a hint why people talk about nano everywhere, right? Look at these two scenarios, right? You have two scenarios here. In the first one, you see a group of people catching a dog. In the second picture, you see a man being chased by a dog. Imagine, right? You are walking alone in a road, a dog is coming in front of you, right? For a person like me who is afraid of dog, right, I will try to avoid contacting that particular dog because basically I am right not right that much comfortable with dogs. When you go with a group of friends, right? So when you go with a group of friends, if a dog comes, I may become brave, I may attack that particular dog, or I may play with that particular dog. So the question is whether you are going to be brave or coward varies depending upon the scenario. In the first case, I'm an individual. In the second case, I'm a group, right? So this is the thing that has happened. When you go to the nanoscale, we get the opportunity to understand how do these particular atoms behave individually. Earlier it was something like having a group of atoms together and believing that the behavior that we have observed are the behavior of the atoms. It is not the behavior of the atoms, it is the behavior of the atom in a group. And that makes this nanoscale special. So it is something like traveling from group behavior towards individual behavior. And what is so fascinating is when you go for this nanoscale, right, you will observe that the material, right, behaves in a very different manner. But there are plenty of examples where this optics being used by nanoscale in this nature. If you go for the case of peacock, right, so they never get dirty because they have nano feathers, right, which will not allow the moisture to be absorbed. Likewise, you can go for n number of examples, right, in which these nanostructured materials utilizing these optical properties, right, and giving you some exciting phenomena. So out of this, I'm just going to focus how you can use nanostructures, right, for green energy harvesting like solar cells. And as I have told you already, we are very specific about the sensitized to solar cell because, right, it has some unique properties that was not observed with any of the solar cell, any of the other generation solar cells, right? So the most important case is dye-sensitized solar cell can have a very wide angle of operation, unlike your silicon solar cell, which has right a constraint in the angle of operation. This DSSC can work on wide range of right sunlight. There is no right angle dependent right absorption of light. And very importantly, these solar cells can work in diffuse conditions, which means that even when the sunlight is very low, these solar cells are capable of generating electricity. That makes a very important point that these solar cells can be used for indoor application. Imagine if I place a dye-sensitized solar cell in this room, it will capture all these particular lights and it will generate electricity, right? And that makes this particular solar cell very effective for indoor application. And plenty of researchers are going on the dye-sensitized solar cells, right? And already the self-powered devices are started relying on these particular dye-sensitized solar cells, right? If you go for a laptop, right, with self-charging mechanisms, people are using, right, these type of things. And when you go for these, what you observe here is, right, a leaf-shaped decorative element. When they are placed in this room, they can be used for generating electricity, right? And what is interesting is, I need electricity to create a light, and I can reuse this particular light to create back that particular electricity, right? And such particular technologies are evolving everywhere, and that is a note, right, that we are going to consider, right, for utilizing this dye-sensitized solar cells. Right? I know I'm going a little bit fast because the other speakers are waiting, right? I have crossed the time allotted to me, right? But still then, right, I will cover up what are the things that are essential to be covered, right? So if you go for a dye-sensitized solar cells, there are 5 parts, right? The first part is going to be called as photoanode, which will have a transparent conducting material upon which a semiconductor will be coated. Typically, it will be titanium oxide. Then you need a dye to absorb the light energy, right? So this light will be absorbed by your dye, right? And your dye get excited and they will be transporting the electron to your photoanode, right? To keep this particular activity continuous, right? To bring back your excited or the electrons, the dye back to its original position, you need an electrolyte system, right? Which will make your holes to be electrons back, right? And you need a counter electrode to make this particular circuit. Right? So what happens is when a light falls on a photoanode, the electrons get ejected, right? And these particular electrons are taken through your lobe, right? And when they reaches your counter electrode, this particular process becomes cyclic, and this particular cycle will be continuously happening because your electrolyte and dye will do the process of generating the electrons continuously. And worldwide, plenty of researches are going on. Even though high-sensitized solar cells do not stand at high point in terms of efficiency, I have mentioned this particular solar cell is going to be very special because they have a great impact when you go for indoor applications, especially the future self-powered electronic devices, IoT devices will rely on this particular technology. Right. So there are 4 case studies, right? I'm going to give you right 2 out of this. I will be talking about how your photoanode can be played using nanostructures, right? I'm not going to talk about the first one because when we go for dye-sensitized solar cells, people talk about right the environmental concern because you use chemical dyes. So instead of using a chemical dye, you can look for bio dyes, right? Natural dyes, right? That can give you environmental compatibility. Another factor is that your photoanodes can be altered. As I have started out, it is not the process of finding new materials. You can play with the nanostructure of some of the well-known materials like titanium oxide. By changing the structure, you can increase the efficiency. And other than that, the counter electrode, right, for dye-sensitized solar cell is basically platinum, which is very expensive. And these platinum can be replaced by other materials like MOS2. So which we call it as platinum-free dye-sensitized solar cells that can be cost-effective. And most importantly, I will be talking about the spectral converters incorporated on this particular system. So as I have told you, there are plenty of natural dyes available. Right? What we have done in our laboratory is we have taken a bio dye called as bacteriorhodopsin, right? And using this particular bacteriorhodopsin, we have prepared some biosensitized solar cells. This is one of a very interesting light protein element which was investigated a lot, right? And when you use these particular light proteins as a dye, right, you can overcome the difficulty of these particular environmental concerns, right? Due to time constraint, I'm skipping this particular part, right? And as I have told you, when you go to the part of photoanodes, titanium oxide is generally used, right? Especially people use spherically, right? Spherical structure titanium oxide placed upon a right TCO films, right? What happens is these electrons will have a constraint with the grain boundaries. Since these spherical structures have grain boundaries, the electrons are not free enough to travel through, right? So there will be plenty of right electron management, which will lead to the reduction in this particular current generation. To overcome this particular difficulty, right, what we can think of is, imagine I have a photoanode in which if I have the titanium oxide be made up of nanorod or nanowires. What do these particular nanorod do is really right, through which you can overcome the difficulties of trapping mechanisms, right? So instead of finding a new material, what you can do is you can play with titanium oxide. You can fabricate vertically aligned titanium oxide nanorods or wires, right? A rod PC, right? Because they have their own width, you can make them as a vertically right aligned nanodes. And when you coat them, right, you can increase the efficiency to some extent. So what we did in our laboratory is not a right very hard mechanism, simple hydrothermal method. right, to fabricate titanium nanorods of different lengths and widths. And when we have fabricated them, right, you could see these are, right, the top view of your right, titanium oxide. I often tell my people, when you take the SIM, it will not give you the results directly. Right? When we got this particular picture for the first time, right, we were expecting some beautiful nanorod structures. Right? But what is interesting is when you take this particular electron microscope from the top, what you could expect is you could see only the top of those particular portions. Right? So that's what we have observed here. But when you slightly tilt this particular portion, when you slightly tilt, and if you take this SIM at 60 degrees, you could see this particular growth of vertically aligned titanium. The length of this titanium rod was increasing, efficiency was increasing. So being a man, we will always look for the longest possible rods. But the problem is, when the reaction time was varying, the length of the rod was increasing. So when we reached 10 hours, we got the maximum efficiency. So we attempted with 12 hours. But when you go for 12 hours, when the length becomes too long, right, they started coming out of those particular substrate. Right? So this film was not intact with your TCO fluids. Right? So using those particular nanorods that we have, you could see when these particular nanorods were grown at different reaction time, the length of the nanorod was increasing, the diameter was increasing. You could see these values here. And proportionately, the dia absorbing capacity of this rod was also increasing. So since this dia absorbing capacity was increasing, they can absorb more light, right? As a result, you will get more electrons. And as a result, since these are basically one-dimensional nanorods, this channelized electron transport will end up with increasing this particular short circuit current and in turn efficiency. The value looks too small because I have not used a conventional die. It was the result that we have got for bacterial dosing. Right? And when you do this particular experiment for conventional dies, the efficiency was too high. Right? And as I have told you, platinum can be replaced with some of the known materials like transition metal dichalconates. Right? We worked on MOS2 and we ended up with the conclusion that this MOS2 can be an excellent replacement for platinum, which will give you the potential possibility of reducing the cost of dye-sensitized solar cells. So platinum are basically used as counter electrodes, right? Since they are expensive, right? We tried with the MOS2, and what we have obtained is, right? This MOS2, right, has a efficiency almost close to this platinum. But the interesting factor is the electroactivity, right? The electrochemical activity of this particular MOS2 is far better than platinum, which give you a better stability. Right? So I will go to the core of my particular presentation. So as I any dye-sensitized solar cells has 5 parts. All right, and the most interesting part is these photoanodes will absorb the sunlight and they will be generating the electricity, right, based on photoelectric effect. But when you have a close look at the band gap of titanium oxide, it will be coming around in the scale of 3 electron volts, which means that they are transparent to most of your electromagnetic spectrum. Especially, dyes are used because these dyes are capable of observing visible spectrum. So, to compensate the light absorbing capacity of your titanium oxide, dyes are used. But problem is, even these particular dyes, by their band structure, they can absorb only visible light. But when you have a close look at the electromagnetic spectrum, almost 50% of your electromagnetic spectrum lies at the scale of infrared. Right? This infrared electromagnetic spectrum is not captured by any of our solar cells. That puts a very big limitation that the process of converting light energy into electricity is constrained because you are not going to utilize 50% of your electromagnetic spectrum due to the constraint of the materials that you have chosen. So titanium oxide or not these dyes, right, can absorb this infrared. What if if I have some mechanism that can absorb these particular infrared and they can be utilized for this particular electricity generation, quite natural, the efficiency of the solar cell will go high. And that's what, right, people have identified. When this 49.4 percentage of infrared, right, spectrum was taken under account, right, the photo conversion efficiency can reach the scale of 48 percentage, right, which was far higher than any of the theoretical values possible with other solar cells. But as I have told you, the materials that you have chosen will never absorb this infrared light, right? So you need an additional system, which we call it as spectral converters. And when you have a close look at the physics, there is a mechanism called as subconversion, right? There is a material called as subconverters. And what do these subconverters do is, they will have the capability of absorbing longer wavelength electromagnetic spectrum, and they can convert that longer wavelength electromagnetic spectrum into shorter wavelength, which means that these particular upconverters can absorb IR light, which is a longer wavelength, and they can convert that particular longer wavelength into a shorter wavelength, something to the domain of visible. So if I put spectral converters in the solar cell, what do the spectral converter do is, they will absorb these 49.4 percentage of the infrared, right, from the atmosphere, and they will be converting this infrared into, right, a visible light, which can be absorbed to your dye directly. The mechanism is going to be simple, right? We all know that, right, when an electron is excited, they move from the ground state to excited state. You call this as one photon process, one photon absorption process. What if the excited electrons gets the capability of absorbing one more electron, right? They can move to the second excited state, right? And you call these particular processes two photon absorption or multi-photon absorption. And from the second excited state, if they jump back to the ground state directly, right? Now they have absorbed two photons of frequency omega. So when they fall down, there will be one photon with a frequency 2 omega. So when the frequency is doubled, the wavelength will be reduced by half. So by absorbing infrared light, it is possible for me to get a photon with a wavelength half of that particular number. And you call these particular processes upconverters. And upconverters is not a new mechanism in science, because this upconversion was widely utilized in laser field, right, to generate the various wavelengths. So what we did is, we have taken a nanophosphor, right, made up of Y2 YPER, right? So what do these particular material do is, right? So what do so what we have chosen is, we have taken a host material Y2O3, in which I am going to dope them with lanthanide ions like rare earth elements YB and ER. And what the material do is, your YB will have a strong infrared absorption, so they will be absorbing infrared light, and through energy transfer process, these electrons can be transferred to the nearby energy levels of, right, your ER, which are normally called as sensitizers. And when these particular electrons are transported here, these particular ER will allow the particular photon to get back to its ground state, right, in the form of 2 photon or 3 photon absorption. Right. So I have a host, right, in which I'm going to incorporate lanthanide ions. One will be doing the process of IR absorption, right, and the band value of this YB, when they are double, they come close to ER, and these particular photons, right, can be converted into 2 photons, and they can be emitted as visible light, right? And that's what we did, right? As I have told you, if you take the absorption spectrum of this Y2 O3 YBER, right, they will have a very strong absorption in this particular domain, which I call it as an IR absorption domain. And this IR absorption comes through those particular transitions which are related to, right, YB atoms. And these particular visible particular wavelengths that you observe here, right, are going to be, right, related to ER. And when you take the photoluminescence, you can exactly see right? These particular materials creates energy levels in the visible region. So meaning these particular materials can absorb IR light and they can emit you visible light, right? So what we did is we used this particular material, right? And this is the mechanism I was talking to you, all right? So your dye are basically capable of absorbing visible light. And when you use this Y2O3 YBER, they will convert your IR light into visible light. And this visible light will be absorbed in your dye. So that makes a sense. You are indirectly capturing the infrared light, right? And that's what we did, right? And when we have fabricated these solar cells, right, using these particular things, right, we attempted at two particular mechanisms. We try to incorporate these subconverters in the counter electrodes because we don't want to disturb the work function of our photoanode, right? And we have incorporated these particular Y2O3 YBER in the counter electrode, and we have fabricated a solar cell, right? And we ended up with an efficiency of 7%. Right? So what we have observed from this particular finding is incorporating these particular new element as an extra layer does not disturb the mechanism of your dye-sensitive solar cells. But what happens is you could observe a slight increase in the efficiency of those particular materials. And that particular increase occurs because your upconverters are now allowing you to absorb this particular IR light. So to confirm this, right, we have fabricated solar cells by incorporating the same upconverters in TiO2 also, right? And when we have done this, right, you could see normal, right, TiO2 based, right, upconverters, right, those particular DSSC without upconverters gave an efficiency of 6.23, and when these same solar cells, when they were included with these particular spectral converters, they ended up with an efficiency of nearly 10, right? So although this particular efficiency was, what we have observed is these particular upconversion, right? If I want to intensify, I have to increase the incorporation of Y2O3, YBR into the system. But when I do this, the conductivity gets disturbed, right? So if I use, right, some Fresnel lens, right, extra solar concentrator, you can increase these particular values. So we are now performing these particular experiments, right, by using additional Fresnel lens in that particular system, so that more particular IR light could be absorbed by utilizing a small amount of these particular spectral converters, right? It is possible for us to increase the efficiency. Researchers are going on that particular side also. Right? Almost it's time, right? I will just close up with the end note. Right? So by observing your infrared light, right, it is possible for you to create solar cells that has broad energy harvesting mechanism through which you can increase the right conversion efficiency of your solar cells to the maximum. Right? I just thought that I could right spare 30 minutes of my time to give those particular ideas to these particular elements. Thank you so much, right, for being patient with this voice. Thank you.
Your speech has been a symphony of inspiration to us, sir. Thank you for sharing your art with us. And I would like to invite Dr. Anita, Associate Professor at Department of Physics, to honor our guest.
We are thrilled to introduce the Master of Physics, Dr. R. Jayaved, Professor at Crystal Growth Center and former Dean, AC Tech Campus, Anna University. He has 35 years of experience in material science and nanotechnology and 30 years of teaching experience. He has published over 535 research articles in peer-reviewed international journals. He owns 2 patents on quantum dot sensitized and solar cells and eco-friendly nano packaging material. So far, 46 researchers has obtained their Doctor of Philosophy degree under his guidance, a true inspiration to youngsters. Your presence on stage would be a pleasure for us, sir. Please.
Okay. Morning to all of you. And I think I don't know if this is happening, but okay. So let me thank the organizers for inviting me for this conference. In fact, it has been a very long due for me to visit this institution. And previously, on 2 or 3 occasions, I could not make it. And I thank Dr. Sakti Pandi and the organizers for organizing this wonderful conference. As many of you know now, so the 3 major challenges which the world is facing is energy, environment, and healthcare. And this conference, titled as Material Science and Technology for Energy, Environment, and Sustainable Development. And when it comes to the sustainable development, in fact, there is a big challenge, and we are now practicing all the 17 SDGs. And in fact, last week, 2 weeks back, I was in Australia. There was a very big debate on this. And there was an argument that when we talk about development, then we lose the sustainability. Okay? And if sustainability should happen, then at the cost of some kind of disaster. And when we have the sustainable development, it will be a very challenging task to take any technology in the futuristic level by compromising the sustainability, whether it's an environment or it's a society or it's a kind of examples now happening around the world. And so this is one sector about addressing the energy sector. And energy sector, you know, that we have the energy production, energy storage, energy utility, energy management, everything covers under the energy sector. And this is specifically about the energy storage. I'm sure that you are all very familiar with this kind of energy storage devices where we use all these small scale storage systems. Now this has become very massive expansion where we talk about the large scale battery storage for industrial applications. Okay, and when it comes to the what is called the smart storage or smart utility, we use the grids. Then grids are integrated with the so-called renewable energy sources, right? So this is actually the grid storage where we have the direct input from the renewable energy sources, and then it is utilized as and when it is needed for the operation. And we are also talking about the green energy, which is one of the goals of this SDG, where this kind of renewable energy process, which are all integrated directly to the storage system, and then it is utilized for the applications. So this is the gist of my talk today. And as I know, this is about 1 hour lecture, but I'll just cut 50% of this so that I will be on time to complete it by 11:15. Okay, and I'll just introduce the special class of materials called 2D materials for those who are not very familiar with this kind of materials, and then something about the energy storage systems. And most of us, we are very familiar with batteries, and we have a lot of developments happening in the batteries, starting from lithium-ion batteries, which was invented in 1971. And that 2019 Nobel Prize was awarded for that discovery. And we have a new system called supercapacitor, where the capacity goes to the extreme level so that it can be used for various applications. And I'll just focus on this kind of material, the graphene, which is a champion material, which is used for a variety of applications now. And then we have recently made some kind of graphene sheets. We call it as the graphene bucket paper. And we have also made some functional devices using that kind of materials, and then summarized. So this is about the introduction about the 2D materials, and these are all special class of materials where we can just prepare these materials in a very, very ultra thin small size of the order of atomic dimension. You know, the atomic dimension is of the order of 10 power minus 10 meters. We can make this kind of materials of the order of few angstrom units. Okay, and these layered materials, probably it was started with graphene, one of the allotropic forms of carbon. And today we talk about what is called the 2D flat land, where the expansion is getting increase every day, and we have a lot of materials adding in that. And the previous speaker, Dr. Sabari Krishnan, also introduced about the MOS2, molybdenum disulfide, which is one of the famous 2D materials. Okay, and we have plenty of examples for that, and we have been working on 2 or 3 materials in this family. And another interesting feature is about these materials. If you look into the absorption capacity, it covers the entire electromagnetic spectrum, starting from UV to visible, visible to NIR, mid-IR, far-IR, terahertz, and even it goes to the micro frequency ranges also. Okay, and so if you look into the functionalities or properties, some of the materials are highly insulating, where the energy gap goes beyond 5 electron volts. And some of them are semiconducting, typically of the order of 1 to 2 electron volt energy gap. And some of them are half metallic, semi-metallic, and if the conductivity is very good, then it is metallic. And if the conductivity goes very extreme level, then they are called as superconducting materials. Okay, so we have, if you take any kind of material, there is a property, and then we can make use of this materials for a variety of applications. And some of the prominent, and now we have another class of materials called 2.5D. You take a 2D material and then intercalate with 3-dimensional or 0-dimensional particles, then it becomes 2.5D. This is the kind of intercalation we do. Take a graphene 2D layer and then introduce with the 3-dimensional structures, so that you get this kind of material, and then it also has very unique properties, and we have a lot of application potential for these materials. Okay, and some of the prominent applications are like it is useful for communication devices and analog digital circuits or interconnects. We can use memory, and sensor is the most sort of the application where we have a lot of sensing properties like electrochemical sensors, fluorescence sensors, calorimetric sensors, field effect transistor sensors, kind of thing. And in electronics, we have a lot of developments happening. And those who are familiar with electronics, that we know what is VLSI technology, very large scale integration devices. And these large scale integration devices are now moving to what is called ultra large scale integration devices, where you can have millions of, thousands of, hundreds of thousands of transistors can be integrated in a single chip. But this kind of materials introduce a new phenomena called extremely large scale integration devices, where you can have integration of millions of transistors in a single chip. Okay. When you talk about extremely large scale integration devices, it doesn't mean that you fabricate 1 million transistors individually and try to integrate in a single chip. That was not possible. Okay. So what they do is they do each and every electron to perform a transistor action. And it is possible that we can integrate millions of electrons together. So of course, we can realize what is called extremely large scale integration devices, and the 2D materials are the best known examples to demonstrate this kind of capabilities. And of course, in biomedical, we have starting from diagnostic, therapeutic, imaging, sensing, and to some extent, we can also use it for biosafety applications. Okay, and of course, photonics also we have a lot of interesting applications. And these are all heterostructures. For example, if you take 2D materials and stack it in stacked layers, and this kind of layers have plenty of application potential, starting from optical, mechanical, using these electronic properties, and we can have a kind of heterostructures of 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional materials, and 2D heterostructures, 2D 1.5D, or 2D 1-dimensional, 2D 0-dimensional. All these combinations were possible because these materials are highly flexible, and also it is very compatible, and it is also biocompatible. You can integrate with biomaterials to realize the biomedical applications. A lot of possibilities for this kind of materials. And in the energy sector alone, we have plenty of application possibilities, starting from battery applications, mechanical energy, chemical energy, thermal, and solar energy applications. Okay. And now we know about the quantum technology, which is getting very famous now. And these quantum materials are also very interesting because we have plenty of application potential, starting from quantum computing, quantum qubit, entanglement, and the quantum materials are very basis for this. Okay, And we have a lot of material options under this category. And the 2D materials are very well-known material for quantum technology. Okay, starting from semiconducting quantum devices or 2D materials. As I said already, these are all the 2D materials category. Then we have topological metals and semi-metals, and all these materials are basically known as quantum materials, and which very greatly contribute for the quantum technology evolution. Okay, and so like that, we have plenty of material options possible. But among all these materials, this graphene is still where we can just isolate an individual atomic layer material called graphene with the sub-nanometer scale thickness, and the other chemical properties are it's actually the sp2 hybridized carbon bonding, and the carbon-carbon bonding is the strongest known bond in nature. Okay, so therefore these materials will have very extreme mechanical stability, and this is actually a single graphene layers. And if you look into the application potential, we can have a very special branch of what is called graphene electronics, including the extremely large scale integration devices, and then it is used for lithium-ion batteries. And these materials will have very extreme surface area of the order of 3,000 meters square per gram. So there it will have a very high photocatalytic activity, and then supercapacitors, which I am going to discuss with you now. We can have what is called the energy density or power density very extreme level compared to the conventional batteries or fuel cells. Okay, and people have also demonstrated taking the advantage of the flexible structures. People have also demonstrated organic light emitting diodes using this. And recently, the graphene oxide, which is the source for the graphene, can also be used for this kind of coatings in the PPE, what is called the personal protective equipment, or the face mask, especially to protect from COVID-19. And if you come to the optical devices, then there is a exclusive application potential starting from optical modulators, optical switching, photonic devices, waveguides. All these applications can be realized using this kind of material. Okay. So in our laboratory, we have been working on 4 verticals based on this graphene nanostructures. One is on FET, field effect transistor sensors. And these sensors are not conventional chemical sensors or gas sensor or biosensor. These are all very extreme sensitivity, where we use this kind of sensors for DNA hybridization sensing. And we also use it for pH sensor, where you can have a single material, sensor, which can tune from the range of pH from 0 to 12. Okay. And recently, we have also demonstrated using the sensor for CRP, C-reactive protein sensing, was also possible using these materials. Another activity is about the photocatalysis, which I told you that because of the extreme surface area, we have a lot of potential for the photocatalytic applications for industrial wastewater treatment, degradation of industrial pollutants, and people also use now for water splitting, hydrogen generation. So all these applications are possible based on this concept. And this is the kind of new area where we made the heterojunctions of heterojunction solar cells using these 2D layers intercalated with the zero-dimensional quantum dot. The advantage is, for example, if you take, as Dr. Sabarikishan also told, that we have the silicon technology, which is the mature technology where we can reach almost 27% of conversion efficiency. Okay, but the requirement is, for example, using the silicon panel. If you want to harvest 1 kilowatt of energy, you need 1 square meter area. Okay, and in a country like India with 1.4 billion population, we cannot afford to have huge, space or area for the installation of large scale installations, right? So people go to Ramnad district or Tuticorin or wherever you go in northern side, in the riverbeds or airport or in the rooftop space, everywhere it is occupied because of the want of space, because the silicon panel is a huge area. Okay, and this material, which is called the cascade solar cell, where we have the zero-dimensional quantum dots integrated with the 2D layer materials like this. make a structure like this. And it has been theoretically predicted the amount of photoelectrons observed on a 1 square meter area of silicon panel can be achieved with 10 square centimeter area of this kind of structures. Okay, so that means it's 10 times the size reduction compared to the conventional silicon technology. Okay, and so there's a lot of scope for this, and we have just made a few attempts to make this kind of heterojunction solar cells with cadmium sulfide and quantum dots with the graphene layers, and we also made quantum dots sensitized solar cells in some other cases. And this is the area where I'm going to discuss today about the supercapacitors. As I said, we have done a lot of work, and it will be very difficult to demonstrate all the applications and the process here. I would just throw some light on the material choices and options, and finally I'll end up with demonstrating some of the applications which we have made in our laboratory. Okay, right. So it would be useful for those who are interested in taking up your research in this domain, and also it will be useful for those who are already practicing your research experience in this area. So coming to the supercapacitors, I don't know how many of you are very familiar with this. So this is actually one of the energy storage technologies like battery. Okay, so we started with lithium-ion battery. Now we have plenty of material options for battery. But when it comes to the lithium-ion battery, there is a limitation as far as we are concerned, because we don't have lithium source in India. Only recently in the Ladakh region, they have identified some lithium, but it was also not very sure about the quality and also the processing technology available for this separation of lithium. And so there were people move with aluminum batteries and also other kind of batteries only to have sustainability and also the affordability. Okay, like because solar cells, we have been using solar cells for the past 5 decades, but we have never had an indigenous development of silicon. Only the Adani Group have recently now started the production of indigenous silicon technology, silicon wafers. We have been only importing from China, Taiwan, and other European countries to demonstrate all our, because we almost reached the 26% of the targeted renewable energy sources, but based on the all imported panels and materials. Okay, so this is one attempt that where we can have large scale storage energy through these supercapacitors, because the capacitors, conventional capacitors, probably all your MSc or BSc laboratories would have used. Okay, the small capacitors. Okay, the capacities will be written as mu f. Have you noticed? It's a mu f is microfarad, right? Microfarad is 10 power minus 6 farad. Okay, and these kind of devices can store energy of the order of 10 power 3. Okay. So from 10 power minus 6, we are moving almost 9 orders of magnitude higher storage, and that is what it's called as super. A capacitor with very extreme capacity is called supercapacitor. Okay, there's nothing very great about this. Only because of the capacity of the device, it is named as supercapacitors. And of course, there are two kind of mechanisms where we store energy through this. One is the double layer capacitors, where the energy storage takes place by electrostatic process. Another one is the pseudo capacitors, where the energy storage takes place by electrochemical process. And there are specific materials. For example, if you want to have double layer capacitance, mostly the carbon-based materials, carbon aerosols, carbon nanotubes, carbon fullerenes, are including this graphene. Okay, and for pseudo capacitance, mostly metal oxides and some kind of connecting polymers. And if you combine these two, okay, so take a graphene-based, carbon-based material, combined with metal oxides, you will get a hybrid structure. Okay, so where you can have the energy storage both by electrostatic as well as the electrochemical processes. Okay, so the advantage is that we can achieve better efficiency in terms of capacity, and also the metal oxides are known for its stability. When it combined with the carbon materials, it gives more stability for the electrode, so that the life is extended. That is the purpose of going for this hybrid. And basically, those who are familiar with batteries, we can have better energy density, but power density is very much limited. And if you go for conventional batteries, mean, conventional capacitors, we can achieve better power density, but energy density is limited. To have the compromise between these two, we have the supercapacitors or hybrid capacitors where we can achieve better power density on par with conventional capacitors and also energy density on par with the batteries or fuel cells and whatever the devices we use for the storage. And another advantage is like, if you take a conventional recharge battery, charging takes place a longer time and also discharge is also very slow. Okay. And when you want to use it for high-end applications where high-speed train and this kind of mobility devices, and in order to when you increase the speed, you have to have the discharge at the faster rate. Okay. So with kind of conventional batteries, it will be difficult because the discharge will be very, very slow. Where we have the supercapacitors, where the charge can be done very instantly, and the discharge can also be done at a very faster rate. Okay. So this is the advantage for that. And these supercapacitors are known for almost for past 3 decades now. It was started in 1995, 96 in Russia. They used these supercapacitors only for electric cars, a very, very small scale mobility, these things. And the charging system was established in 2004. And 2006, China demonstrated the first commercial passenger vehicle using the supercapacitors. And today we have what is called the flexible supercapacitors because of the availability of 2D materials which are highly flexible, polymer materials. And we have a lot of developments happening now. And because the maximum capacity which we have reached is around 2,500 farad per gram. Okay, that is the highest capacity achieved so far using this kind of materials. Okay, so the application started with the small scale memory backup applications as we do for energy storage, and this is actually the grid storage where it can be integrated with this kind of solar cell installations to have the grid storage, and then it was also used this kind of vehicles. But now the futuristic application is that the supercapacitors can be used for aerospace and defense applications, and this kind of next generation high speed trains, which can also be operated with supercapacitors. Okay, and if you look into the commercial scale, there are a lot of companies they are making now the supercapacitors, and mostly on metal oxide based supercapacitors which have more stability. And the materials development is happening on our side with this kind of 2D materials and polymeric materials, so that we can have the miniaturized devices with very extreme capacitance. Okay. I have to just rush through because this is actually the materials option. Sorry. It's going forward. Right? The purpose was like forward. Okay, the purpose was to make a hybrid structure by the combination of carbon-based material and metal oxides and polymeric structures. That is what we have tried. And this, yeah, go back. No. What now? 80. Okay. So the advantage is, for example, if you take a carbon-based material where you can achieve the specific capacitance of only maximum up to 400 farad per gram. Okay. And the polymers also it is more or less equal. And if you take metal oxide, it goes up to 800 farad per gram. Okay. And now if you combine this metal oxide and carbon-based materials like ruthenium oxide with the CNT or ruthenium oxide with activated carbon or carbon aerosols, all these materials now you can have a maximum 1,200 farad per gram. Okay. So that is the advantage of going for these hybrid structures where we can have the advantage of increasing the specific capacitance, and once you have the increase in the specific capacitance, your energy density will be improved. Okay, and if you make an electrode in such a way that you have the very fast ionic movement, then we can also increase the power density. So that was the purpose. Like other materials, like we have different kinds of material. I'll just skip all these things because we are running out of time. And I'll just give only a few examples which we have done in our laboratory. We have tried with this reduced graphene oxide with metal oxides. So with we started with tin oxide, And this tin oxide compound showed the current is of the order of milliampere range. Okay. So if the current is of the order of milliampere, then it implies that the power density will be very much limited. Okay. So we wanted to just increase the current capacity. So therefore, we have tried with different options, and this was actually the reduced graphene oxide with cobalt oxide. And this kind of cobalt oxides will have a very, very unique morphology, where you can have this kind of spherical morphology, and it also becomes a kind of hexagonal morphology, and we can also sometimes form kind of clusters. Okay. So in spite of all this different morphology, it goes very well with this graphene oxide, where you can just get the current of the order of milliampere again. And for this kind of structure, we have achieved the energy density of almost right. So the energy density was almost 44 watt-hour per kg, with the power density is reaching almost close to 300 watt per kg. This is the kind of data for this. So having done with metal oxides, we also tried different kinds of metal oxide. This is ruthenium oxide. Then we have also used titanium oxide, and this is actually the practical 2-electrode supercapacitor, where the energy density was very close to 50 watt-hour per kg. And this is actually a one-dimensional structure, because we can also work with a bulk 3-dimensional nanoparticle. We can have a 2D materials, and these 2D materials can be integrated with this kind of one-dimensional structure. This is a bismuth vanadate with RGO composite, and here you can just see the current is of the order of ampere range. Okay, we move from milliampere range to ampere range to get better power density for this kind of devices. Okay. So, like that, we have done a lot of work on this category, and and this is a very recent work where we use this kind of reclaiming of carbon fibers, because the carbon fibers, if you just look into the data available, and it is almost 30,000 tons of carbon fibers are being wasted, or it is used for landfilling, because of the end-of-life products like satellite things and aircrafts, or this kind of automobile bodies, and this kind of end-of-life products yields almost 30,000 tons of carbon fibers, right? And only the small part of this is used for making the bicycle frames and some kind of sports components and toys, right? Others are just used for ramp filling. It covers almost 50,000 square kilometers area. If you just globally calculate the area which is useful when filled with this kind of carbon fibers. And there are a lot of attempts to make use of this reclaimed carbon fibers for a variety of applications. And this is one attempt where we use this kind of carbon fibers and then made the solid state supercapacitors by doing some kind of aerobic pyrolysis for these carbon fibers to make it more flexible. And once you make it flexible, then it is very good for making different kinds of options like that. And this is one attempt where we have achieved almost 100% Coulombic efficiency for this capacitance of around 120. 120. The current densities are the order of milliampere, but the energy density for this was almost 35 watt-hour per kg. Okay, and the advantage is that we can go for this is ex situ characterization. That means that the electrode was subjected to 30,000 charge discharge cycles. So after subjecting to 30,000 charge discharge cycles, we removed it and then looked into the stability of these devices, where we can do some kind of bending or multiple bending or X bending using this flexible carbon fibers. Okay, and this is the very recent work which we have just applied for patent and not yet published. And this is something about the metal sulfides, because having done with metal oxides, we also tried with metal sulfides like cadmium sulfide, lead sulfide, zinc sulfide. And in all these cases, there was a very interesting observation. There is a very strong luminescence quenching when we make a composite of metal sulfide with RGO. Okay, so this is a typical structure where you have the RGO and then the metal oxides are embedded very uniformly on the surface. The crystallographic orientation is confirmed by this FT Fourier transform infrared images in the TEM, and then stability also checked. And this is actually pure cadmium sulfide. We have a very strong luminescence peak at 564 nanometer, 574 nanometer kind of thing. But when you make a composite with RGO, it drastically goes down, and then there is a very strong luminescence quenching takes place. And this is actually related to the what is called the electron affinity on the surface of cadmium sulfide and graphene surfaces. And another reason is that the Fermi energy for this kind of structure is very close. One is about 4 electron volt, another one is about 4.42 electron volt. Okay, and because of this proximity, that we have a very strong luminescence quenching. But this was actually demonstrated for cadmium sulfide. But we have also observed the same phenomena in cadmium and lead sulfide, zinc sulfide kind of metal sulfides. Okay. And this is actually the heterostructure. Okay. For example, making two 2D layers. One is MOS2, another one is RGO. And if you make a composite like this, and you get this kind of layer structures, only the graphene, molybdenum disulfide, graphene alternate layers, and the TEM shows that stacking of layers. This kind of heterostructure have a lot of interest, where we look into the interface stability and also how these flexible devices are made using this kind of 2D heterostructures. Okay. And you can just see all these things, the current is of the order of milliampere range, and we get a very good power density. This is for pure graphene oxide, and this is for MOS2, and the combination of these two pushes the energy density and power density to the very same level. Right? And like that, we have done a lot of work on this kind of areas also. This is another heterostructure with bismuth vanadate, and this is actually a project work from the Ministry of Education, where we made the nickel cobaltite with the RGO nanocomposite, and we have made the practical supercapacitor kind of pouch type capacitor using this composite, and also we have also made a coin cell out of this. And this is actually the demonstration how the LEDs charge and discharge when we have this kind of devices. And this is the fabrication protocol for coin cell. We use the activated carbon anode with the polymer separators. And we have also done some work on the multi-core structures, which I will just skip and go to the last part, where so this is the large area graphene. It is about 10 square centimeter area. Okay. So this was prepared by in situ synthesis process by self-alignment. Here we just take the graphene powder and then sonicate it for about 2 hours, and then it is poured on a petri dish, and then before pouring that we put a silane layer for the easy peel up from the surface, and then this kind of graphene sheets are fabricated by self-assembly process, and then we did all the essential characterization. We also did some molecular simulation studies to fix the annealing temperature, because we cannot use the chemical reduction here because it will damage the physical structure. So we use the inert atmosphere annealing like argon or nitrogen, and to fix the annealing temperature, we did some molecular simulation studies. And this is actually the actual bucky paper, which is 10 square centimeter area. And it's highly flexible, where you can just roll it or twist it or stretch it. It doesn't lose its stability. Okay. And we made this kind of flexible solid state supercapacitors, achieving the specific capacitance of almost 550 farad per gram with the current of the order of milliampere. And if you look into the charge discharge curve, it's perfectly symmetric because of the two sheets are separated with the polymer separators. And there are a lot of scope for this. This is actually the conductance and how the The real solid-state supercapacitor is connected with an LED for its demonstration, and the specific capacitance retention is almost 95%. Okay, after 1,000 charge discharge cycles. And we just use this kind of graphene bucky paper for demonstration of application. This is one application where we use it of bimorphic electrical actuators. Okay, so this is actually so the device is like here. Okay, it's a small graphene sheet with separated with the two different polymers. One is PDA-3PO4, another one is the PDM NAFN solution. You can just see the tip displacement for both negative as well as positive bias is very symmetric here because it's a very, very tiny compound. And this kind of biometric actuators are useful for robotic arms where it will have a 360-degree rotation. Okay. So this is one application which we have demonstrated. Another one is about the use of this boron doped RGO as the cold transport layer for the perovskite solar cells. Because the major challenge in the perovskite solar cell is the stability. Okay, and we have the perovskite material, and then if you have the too much of layers, then it deteriorates its stability, and then the efficiency also goes down. Here we use the boron doped RGO as a whole transport layer as well as the electrical conducting layer, where we achieved efficiency of about 5.04% for this solar cell. It was actually the first attempt that we have made this, and also trying to optimize for further enhancement of the efficiency. And we also use it for ammonia vapor sensing. Ammonia vapor sensing is a kind of dynamic process. Okay. Ammonia molecular sensing is very easy, where we can do any kind of chemicals sensors will do. But ammonia vapor sensing is very sensitive, and we have used this cerium oxide and tin oxide based RGO. We got an efficiency of almost, and sensitivity of almost 51% for the cerium oxide combined with RGO composite, and it was also very good, like in industrial scale, where we can use the ammonia vapor sensing. Okay, and these are all some of the results which we have demonstrated in our laboratory. As I said, we have been working on these 2D materials almost now 15 years, and starting from pure graphene and making hybrid electrode structures, and then working on the different combinations of morphology from 2D to multi-core structures, and then also demonstrating large area graphene sheets. Okay. So with this, let me just acknowledge our collaborators from Japan, National Institute for Material Science, and also the University of Newcastle in Australia. And the students which they have really done this work was like Dr. Shanmugam, he is in Korea, and Tangappan is a faculty in Periyar University, and Sengotayan is in Japan, and Sellakumar is in Coimbatore in PhD Tech. And we have funding from DST Nano Mission program, where Dr. Praveen Kumar was in charge when we had this project. He was here yesterday. And we also have another project from Ministry of Education under the STAR scheme. STAR scheme is like kind of translational research in scientific region, and we also have a kind of NIMS Anna University Joint Graduate School program, where two of our students, Shanmugam and Sengotayan, they spent 1 year in Japan under the Joint Graduate School program, because that sensor work, which I told you, FET, field effect transistor sensor, which was done in collaboration with NIMS. Okay. So with this, let me thank all of you, and I think I have taken 5 minutes more than the allotted time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your insights. You have taken us on a journey of discovery. Your powerful words has truly inspired us. Now, I kindly request Dr. R. Krishnamurthy, Dean Research, SRM Trichy Campus, to honor the guest. Now it's time for a short tea break. I request the audience to take a short break and assemble in the same venue after 10 minutes.
அந்த ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ் வந்தாங்களே இந்த ரோட்ல அவங்க எல்லாரையும் பார்ட்டிசிபேட் ரெஜிஸ்டர் பண்ணிருக்கீங்களா? ரெஜிஸ்ட்ரேஷன் எடுத்தீங்க? இப்போ நெக்ஸ்ட் வந்து இதுங்கன்னு சொன்னாங்க ஸ்டூடெண்ட்க்கு யார் ப்ரொவைட் பண்றாங்களோ அவங்க ரெடி பண்ணி விடுங்க. நம்ம ஏன் எல்லா டென்ஷனும்
அடுத்து யாரு
சார்? அடுத்து இண்டஸ்ட்ரியல் டாக்னு சொன்னாங்க சார். அனுமதி சர்டிஃபிகேட் பார்த்துட்டு இருந்தாங்க. அதனால
இல்ல அவர் என்ன அனுமதி பார்த்து என்ன பண்ண போறாங்க?
அடுத்து தண்டபாணி சார்.
சரி அனுமதி இவரு கொஞ்சம் பிஸியா இருக்காரு. இல்ல அனுமதி கேட்டுட்டீங்களா? ரெடி ஆயிட்டு அவரே பண்ணிடுங்க. இங்க இருந்து வேலையா இருக்காரு. பேசிட்டு அடுத்து வந்து கணக்கு வந்து மதிவான
இல்லை சார், யாருமே இல்லை சார்.
ஒரு பையன்
வேற யாரையாவது பையன்
ஒரு பையனை டீம் தான் போட்டு போட்டு
சார் டீ ஸ்நாக்ஸ்
எங்க வைக்கணும் நீங்க அங்கேயே வச்சிருங்க.
சொல்லியிருக்கு சார். இந்த மணி கொஞ்சம் வந்து கனெக்ட் பண்ணி கொடுத்துட்டு ஒரு பையனை டைப் பண்ணிட்டு போயிடுது. அடுத்து இல்ல போட்டு
மட்டும் சொல்லியிருக்கேன்.
சார் அவங்க ஃபோன் பண்ணி போஸ்ட் ஆஸ்கேட்டர்
ஏன் சார் போயிட்டாங்களா?
அவங்க போயிட்டாங்க.
ஓகே சார், நான்
ஆஸ்கே சார் கிட்ட
சரி ஓகே சொல்லுங்க.
அப்படியே நெக்ஸ்ட் அது யார் படிக்கிறா? யார் இருக்கிறா? பிரஜா ஃபோன் பண்ணிச்சு 25 சார்ஜ் ஆனா அந்த பொண்ணு வந்து காப்பிச்சாங்க இது வந்து என்ன போட்டிருக்காங்க அவ பக்கத்துல பண்ணி போய் பார்த்து அவர்கிட்டயே வந்துட்டேன் ஏன் சார் அது இல்லைன்னு தான் நான் உங்ககிட்ட கேட்டேன் அதை போய் நான் வாங்கிட்டேன்
I request all the students to assemble in their seats. Let's resume the conference. Dr. H.C. Anandamurthy is currently working as Professor of Inorganic Chemistry, School of Applied Science, Papua New Guinea, University of Technology. He has authored 12 books, 24 book chapters, and 6 compendia. He has carried out several projects and guided 16 UG students, 7 PG students, and 4 PhD students. At present, 4 PhD students are working under his supervision. He is currently involved in 3 projects granted by the Ministry of Education, Government of Ethiopia, one project granted by the University of Technology, Papua New Guinea, and one project by the Telecom Malaysia for the development of electrochromic smart windows. Dr. H.C. Anandamurthy has recently been elected as Fellow, Royal Society of Chemistry, London, UK, in the year 2022. He has recently received Excellent Researcher Award at Asia Science, Technology and Research Awards Congress held at Trichy, Tamil Nadu. Please join me in welcoming Dr. H.C. Anandamurthy as he shares his knowledge and experience with us. Sir, please.
Good morning, all of you. I'm Dr. H.C. Anandamurthy, presently working as a professor in the Papua New Guinea University of Technology. It's an island country near Australia. I've been teaching chemistry for a long time, and so far we have been working in the field of nanomaterials. As you know that most of your previous speakers have highlighted the significance of nanomaterials. So nanomaterials in various nanoforms have been applied for multifunctional applications, and these applications includes let's say photocatalysis, sensor, and biomedical applications, catalysis, environmental remediation. There are large number of applications we can find for nanomaterials. But as far as our work is concerned, I have many researchers and research collaborators across many countries, and these are my, the international collaborators, and also our research group, and my students, and also collaborators in India. Basically, see, these are the important nanomaterials that we are making in our laboratory in the research areas connected to inorganic materials chemistry. Very few limited materials we have started working with, especially I'm mainly focusing on green synthesis. See, nanomaterials can be synthesized by using varieties of ways, and one of the best ways is the green synthesis. That is by using the naturally available plant materials. So that green synthesis methodology has been utilized to make the nanoparticles, metallic nanoparticles, metal oxides, nanocomposites, and various types of sandwich complexes, etc. So all this can be made. So we have basically our group has been involved in these works: synthesis of metallic nanoparticles, copper, cobalt, and silver, metal oxides, including all these transition metal oxides like zinc oxide, titanium oxide, etc. Mixed metal oxides. We made binary, ternary metal oxides to just see that the band gap of the material is suitable for the practical application, especially in the field of environmental remediation. And then we have also started with core shell nanostructures. Then some of the graphite carbonated based nanocomposites and RGO based nanocomposites. So these are all the nanomaterials that the students of our group have synthesized in the last few years. I'm going to just discuss one of them, the cobalt based nanomaterials. So we have a core shell nanostructure. So far you have seen so many nanocomposites have been presented to you for various applications. In this case, you will see the core shell. This is a new kind of material where a core is made from one material and the shell is made from another material. So both are in the nano form. So they have a specific applications. So one of the recent work of my PhD student, I'm just going to present. synthesis, then characterization and applications of cobalt-based nanocomposites. A very simple work. Nothing too much, get confused or anything related to that. So very simple, straightforward. You can easily understand the work. So whatever the nanomaterials that we synthesize in our laboratory, basically immediately the second step is to characterize. So presently we have a large number of advanced technical tools like SEM, TEM, XPS, FTIR, UV-Visible, etc. So we just characterize the materials using those techniques and then apply for certain specific applications. Basically, we are focusing on 3 different applications in our lab. One is photocatalysis. The second one is biomedical applications that includes anti-cancer, antibacterial, antimicrobial, antifungal, antioxidant properties. And the third one is electrochemical sensing of pollutant molecules or even biomolecules. We tried with some biomolecules and some pollutants, the dyes and food colorants, etc. So let's move on to the basic idea. Today cancer has become a very important, serious issue all over the world. There are a large number of cancer problems, cancer patients in this world, and due to a lot of reasons. So basically, we are planning just to make materials which can kill these cancer cells. So that's one of the ideas. People have been all over the world. They've been working in this field. So they just try to see how exactly these cancer cells can be destroyed, and we can see that it can have a cure. So basically, there are a large number of cancers. You can see the major one includes this the breast cancer, colorectum, liver, prostate, stomach, and many. So the cells get damaged, or in a way they become abnormal. The normal cell get converted into abnormal cells, and that causes cancer. So this is a very interesting field. Just to share with you, recently I visited one of the research centers in Bangalore, where one of my classmates is the director of the medicinal chemistry. So they are making such molecules which can combat these kinds of cancer causing cells. So they're making the materials, the molecules which can kill these cells, and it takes minimum 20 years from the synthesis to characterization to clinical trials and introducing the same into the market. 20 years. And they are going to definitely make patent and they sell it to pharma companies for millions of dollars, and they are going to bring those molecules into the market. So that's one kind of research going on in the field of organic. And the same way, some of the inorganic nanomaterials have been utilized to kill these cancer cells. So we started working in the one of these, in the breast cancer. We have just used our nanomaterials to see that they are effective in killing these cells. And you can see another important global problem is bacterial infections in addition to cancer. So significant public health concern. Bacteria are small single-cell organisms found almost everywhere on Earth, and these are the main food pathogens. And these bacteria are going to cause a lot of problems. So today, most of the simple health problems that you face every day is basically due to the simple bacteria. So the nanomaterials can also act as antibacterial materials. And another reason is that development of this stress within the cell, oxidative, we call it oxidative stress. So for that we need antioxidant materials. So these nanomaterials that were synthesized in our laboratory, the Corshell nanomaterials, have been applied to see that they serve the purpose of anti-cancer agent, antibacterial agent, and antioxidant agent. So there are plenty of other applications too, but we are limiting the applications only to few. But if you just go through the literature, you will find these nanomaterials have been applied for a large number of potential applications, especially in the field of environmental remediation. Of course, due to the limitation in the time, I may not be able to cover everything. Just a brief glimpse of what is happening in the laboratory. So, metal oxide core shell nanostructures. These are the latest materials that are being utilized. Previously, you have seen number of metal oxides deposited on graphene oxide or reduced graphene oxide or carbon nanotube. You get number of nanocomposite materials that have been applied. But in the present day, we are going for, or most of the researchers are going for this core shell structure. You can make a core using one type of material and shell out of the another. So core shell nanomaterials have special characteristic properties where you can tune the band gap. So that will definitely make a significant, effect in the photocatalytic properties of materials and as well as in the mechanism of killing the bacteria inside the system or even the other applications. So this band gap of the nano can be tuned by using a specific set of materials. That's what we are doing. You can see this is one of the example. So core is made of one material and the shell is made of another one. So we have tried with all these things. Say, especially in this present, we have a core of cobalt oxide and a shell of manganese dioxide, say silicon dioxide, cobalt oxide. Many things can be made. So looking at these options, we have selected a few choices. In this case, say our core was cobalt oxide and the shell was made using zinc oxide, nickel oxide, and copper oxide. We have made three different nanomaterials. So cobalt oxide with zinc oxide, cobalt oxide with nickel oxide, and cobalt oxide with copper oxide. So the three different shells, but the core is the same. And we just synthesize the cobalt oxide core with these shells due to their characteristic properties. We have selected these materials. So three different materials have been synthesized in the laboratory and their characterization has been done, and then we have seen just the applications. So this is very, if you want to synthesize any of the nanomaterials, there are plenty of methodologies. You can say basically nanomaterial, they are in the nano form, very small. So either you can start from atom or you can start from the bulk material. If you start from the bulk material, you have to go by the top-down method. You have to break down into smaller fragments until you reach the nano. Otherwise, you can start from atoms, go by any of the chemical synthesis where you combine atoms to get a cluster, and the clusters are allowed to grow to get a nanoparticle. So basically, two techniques are there: top-down and bottom-up, and there are plenty of methods. But what is important recently is the green method. You can synthesize nanomaterials in your own laboratory within 24 hours. If you start today, you will get nanomaterials tomorrow in your lab by just using any kind of plant extract. Any plant around your place, you can take, make an extract, synthesize the nanomaterials. The simplest method. You are not going to use any kind of chemicals. That's why most of the people are using this green method. And especially, any country for that matter, they have a large number of medicinal plants. So we tried using several medicinal plants of Ethiopia and Tanzania and also the Papua New Guinea, where I'm presently working, and there are two projects working in that field. There are plenty of medicinal plants in India. You can use them and you can combine the characteristic properties of the nanomaterials with the plant. This is an additional benefit of using this. So when it comes to plant, you can use, say, you can use the flower, you can use root, leaves, fruit, or as a whole, you can use the plant and make use of the extract and synthesis. Okay. So there's a very simple methodology. So green synthesis is environment easily available, eco-friendly procedure, non-toxic, cost-effective. So number of advantages are there. That's why people are going most of the time for this simple methodology. So this is one of the medicinal plant which has been found in Ethiopia. Datura stramonium. The ideal candidates, they are suitable for large-scale synthesis of various core shell nanostructures with the diverse structures, shapes, and sizes. So basically, these plant extracts, for that matter, see, they contains all these biomolecules like alkaloids, saponins, steroids, tannins, flavonoids, etc. So these chemicals serve the purpose of the reducing agent and stabilizing agent. That these are the two steps that happens in the synthesis of nanomaterial. You start from solution, metal solution. Let's say you want to synthesize copper nanoparticle. You can take a copper sulfate, copper sulfate solution, a blue colored solution. Just take it, mix with a plant extract. You will see within 24 hours the formation of copper nanoparticle. So for that, two-step process is very important. One is the reduction of metal ions into metal atoms, and the metal atoms combine and they nucleate in the presence of stabilizing agent. So some of phytochemicals serve as stabilizing agent, and you will see the formation. So two steps. One is stabilizing process, other one is a reduction process. So these two processes are being carried out in the presence of these phytochemicals. You take any plant extract, they will definitely serve. Of course, one may be more effective, the other one will be less. So this is what is a plant utilized, and the mechanism already is shown. So basically, our work, we just focused on this one problem, cancer. That was a major problem in this particular work of the student. It is a very severe, issue. There are 2.3 million, breast cancer cases all over the world. So there is a need for developing some, drugs which can combat this kind of, cells. And also, there are advantages and disadvantages with conventional therapies. You can see conventional therapy includes, surgery, chemotherapy, immunotherapy, hormone therapy, etc. So they have significant, adverse effects. So one definitely needs something, which is more eco-friendly material to combat this kind of problems. So there have been plenty of examples where nanomaterials have been applied for this particular, cases. So developing potent anti-cancer drug with a high efficiency and low toxicity became an imperative issue. So there have been many examples. You can see silver and gold partial nanoparticles, and then silver with PVP. Plenty of work have been reported in the last 10 years of history. People still they are working in this particular aspect, but there are always great opportunity for everybody to go for new material. So in that way, so we just started using this ammonium leaf extract mediated synthesis of cobalt oxide with zinc oxide, cobalt oxide with nickel oxide, and cobalt oxide with copper oxide core shell nanostructure. In all of them, cobalt oxide is the core, and the remaining three are separate materials, and their characteristic properties have been investigated by various techniques. I may not be able to discuss all of them. Maybe I'll just okay. Just the objective of this work is just to synthesize these core shell nanostructures and investigate their anti-cancer, antibacterial, and antioxidant activities. And basically, the specific objective, as I already told you, that when we synthesize the nanomaterials, we go for characterization. It's a common procedure. After the characterization, it has to be tested for the anti-cancer, antibacterial, and antioxidant properties. That's what we have done in this small work. So, due to the limitation, I think there is something wrong. It's not moving. I'm going to skip these things. What are the materials and methods? Okay, I may not be able to, explain everything. Just a brief schematic representation of how we prepare the plant extract. So basically, we take the fresh leaves or fresh, the part of the plant, dry it, and then grind it, and use the powder, mix it with suitable solvent. Basically, water is used as a solvent, and then we get the extract, and that extract is used to synthesize the nanomaterial. So before that, we go for a phytochemical analysis of these plant extracts. You can see these are the tests that we conduct and to ensure that these phytochemicals are present in the system, like flavonoids, alkaloids, tannins, terpenoids, steroids, etc. So all these materials serve the purpose of stabilizing and reducing the system. So metal ions have to be reduced, and definitely they need to be kept. So synthesis is, of course, a very simple methodology. Just you have to take a precursor salt of your choice. In our case, it is cobalt oxide, and then mix with plant extract. You will see the formation of nanomaterials, and then you can again continue the procedure to coat another material that will be the shell material. So this is the synthetic methodology. If you can just refer some of our published papers, you can see them, right? It's not a big deal. Anybody can synthesize. So this is the synthesis of cobalt oxide as a core and zinc oxide as a shell. So this is with respect to nickel oxide. And this work has been done in Ethiopia. The country is still under development. It's not like even India. So we had to face a lot of challenges in the laboratories, but still we have to reach the expected target. But we reached it with great challenges. So you don't find sophisticated laboratories everywhere. I'm just finding these are the characterization techniques that we utilize in our research work. But of course, all of these instruments are not available, so we need to send the samples to various countries to get the result and finish the work. Otherwise, it's impossible. And of course, this is maybe a tedious procedure for you to remember. Anti-cancer studies. We use several materials here in culturing, and then following procedure to end up with the expected result. So all these procedures and definitely will be followed as per the standard, international standard. I'm not going to just explain everything. And this is with respect to antibacterial activity. And then this is the result of the phytochemical screening of the plant extract. And after this, the characterization results. So we are going to confirm, what kind of material is going to be best suitable for our application. And we have gone for thermal, analysis. We have to see the stability of the material. So for that, we go for the thermochrometric analysis. Most of the material, you can see, they were able to exhibit the stability around 350 degrees centigrade. One kind of metals are 480 degrees centigrade, another one 380 degrees centigrade. So we are going to just decide what kind of temperature is suitable, best suitable for the material synthesis based on this, and also the operating temperature. Another important application, that is the characterization application, is the invisible analysis, which is very essential to know the band gap. Basically, the mechanism of this bacterial action depends on the band gap of the material. I think the semiconducting materials. There is a band gap between the valence and the conduction band. So that basically decides the mechanism of action and also the efficiency of the what you can say the degradation or antibacterial action. So you can say the first material we had 3.06 electron volts, and the second one 3.58, and the third one 3.45 and 2.8. You can see these are the metals: cobalt oxide, zinc oxide, nickel oxide, and copper oxide. The individual one. When you make a shell, core shell, what happens? You can see there is a variation in the band gap, 3.82, 4.52, 3.15. So all this band gap is basically dependent on the heterogeneity between the core material and the junction, the shell material. So cobalt oxide, nickel oxide, cobalt oxide, zinc oxide, and cobalt oxide, copper oxide. All of them have different, band gaps, and that is basically due to quantum confinement, interfacial strains, and quantized energy. And this is a FTIR analysis, basically to ensure that the biomolecules are present around the nanoparticles. We go for this analysis, and you can see all these phytochemicals, if they are present around the nanoparticles, you will see the stretching of all these, simple bonds like CC, CO, CN, CH, and OH, etc. So we confirm in that way that there is effective involvement. These are all simple ones. And in order to approve the structural analysis, structure of the materials, we go for this XRD. It's very simple analysis. So XRD will specify that the synthesized material is in crystalline form. So if it is crystalline, you will get a sharp peaks in the XRD. If it is amorphous, you will not get sharp. Instead, you will get a very broad peak. So now we can see all are very sharp peaks, and we have assigned these core and the shell nanomaterials synthesized in various concentration. What is mentioned in the bracket 2:1:1:1:2 refers to the ratio of precursor salt to the plant extract. You can change the ratio depending on your the yield of the material. So this is a simple technique. So we confirm the characteristic pure material as well as the core shell nanostructures. The structures of all of them have been ascertained using this technique. So some of them follow cubic structure, some of them hexagonal, and some of them FCC, monoclinic, etc. And even you will find the cell parameters also if you need. What is the bond angle? What is the length? A, B, C. All these things can be obtained. So this is one of the analysis. After this, another equally important one is the image analysis. Scanning electron micrograph and tunneling the transmission electron micrographic images will help you to understand the morphology, what kind of structures you have, whether the synthesized material is in a particle form or cubical form or nanoformed rod form, flower form. So all these can be revealed in these images. You can see here there are spherical forms here, and some flower forms will also be formed. You can see in the next image. Maybe there is something wrong with this. So you can see the different images here, especially. See, there are spherical forms, the rod forms, and in case in our metallic nanoparticles, we have found various different forms like prismatic, cubical, hexagonal, etc. So it depends on the kind of the phytochemicals present in the plant extract. So there are techniques. You see, there are chemical methods. You can synthesize nanomaterials, any form of your choice. But when you use a plant extract, you don't have any control to decide the morphology. So this is another thing, right? So that's why chemical methods are employed to get a desired morphology, but green synthesis will not do. So in the previous work, we have ended with all kinds of forms, a spherical form, cubic forms, then the hexagonal, prismatic, and various forms. So these are the simple structure. This is again FEM analysis confirming the elements, all the elements you can see. In the first case, we have confirmed the cobalt oxide with nickel oxide. So cobalt is the core and nickel oxide is the shell. So elemental analysis will confirm that you have synthesized that material. So this is another one, and we have also ended with the particle size. Approximately the particle size is somewhere around 30.6 nanometer in the third case, second case 24.2, and the first one 63.4. Anything between 1 to 100 is considered to be nanoform. So all of them, the average particle size is coming somewhere around 50. And you can see the various forms you can make out here, the rod form, the cubic form, the spherical form. So it's going to be a mixture of all these forms. We do not have any control to arrive at a suitable morphology. It depends basically on the content, the phytochemical constituents present in the plant extract. Similarly, other materials. And you can see this another high resolution TEM that will confirm the high crystalline nature of the material. So these systematic, ring patterns will specify that the synthesized material is absolutely, crystalline in nature. So this is one way, and we can assign even the Miller indices for the specific you can see 111, 222, 311, all these are for cobalt oxide nanomaterial. So similarly, when you go for the other materials, you can even find the planes corresponding to the shell materials also. So we have a method, we use some certain software to find out the interplanar spacing. So interplanar spacing of that 100 plane of cobalt oxide is somewhere around 0.2744, and we have a standard data for the same, and this value is supposed to match with that value. So if it matches, then we confirm that the material synthesized in the lab is cobalt oxide only. So this is done even for the shell material. So we use the same methodology. So this is all the confirmation of the elements as well as the structure and morphology of the synthesized material. So these are the simple techniques that we adopt to arrive at the materials, cobalt oxide and other materials also present in that. So two combination, core as well as the shell. So both are confirmed using this particular technique. This is how we normally confirm the materials. So the next one is the applications. Once the materials are synthesized and characterized, what do we do in the laboratory? We go for the applications of our choice. So we basically do three important applications, as I already mentioned. One is photocatalysis. The second one is biomedical application that includes anti-cancer, antibacterial, and antioxidant. And the third one is electrochemical sensing of these molecules. So, of course, if you just move across the literature, you can see plenty of other applications too. And of course, you can choose the applications of your choice, and also the facilities are depending on your interest. There are plenty of opportunities to enter into the field of nanomaterials. This field, the materials, remember, it's only the nano. You are going to enter into the nano. So you have to decide where to enter, which field, which application, which material. Plenty of options. Like the opportunities are like ocean cells, the active cells decreased in the presence of this material. So this is one specific application. And this is the result with the standard cells and the material cytotoxicity order is CC, CZ, CZ. So this is copper oxide, zinc oxide, and nickel oxide. So copper oxide core shell material exhibited better property compared to the remaining ones. So mechanistic interaction has been explained. No, maybe it will be difficult for you to understand entirely how the nanomaterials are going to kill these the cells causing the breast cancer. So there is a separate mechanism. Basically, these nanomaterials have the potential to interact with the the cells and break down, kill these disease-causing cells. So we have also conducted a simple antibacterial activity for the same set of materials, cobalt oxide, zinc oxide. These are all for the single material, all single, cobalt oxide, zinc oxide, copper oxide, etc. Then we have also tested for the core shell materials. So core shell material exhibited comparatively a better zone of inhibition in this antibacterial evaluation. These are all the results mentioning the zone of inhibitions and mechanism is as simple as that. So these metal oxides will interact with the bacterial cell wall. They kill the bacteria by entering into the bacterial system. So they easily break the cell wall and enter. This is all because of the generation of reactive oxygen species by the nanomaterials. And these are some of the results related to antioxidant. So we have also found, of course, the better antioxidant properties for the core shell nanostructures compared to their basic materials. Okay. So in this case, you can see the order. The zinc oxide based core shell structures exhibited a better antioxidant property compared to techniques which play a crucial role in adding the nature of the material. After that, so when we have tested this one, so they proved to be very effective in all these three cases. They served as anti-cancer agents, antibacterial, and antioxidant agents. So this is a simple work that we have executed very recently. So thank you very much for your patience listening. I conclude my talk. Thank you.
We are grateful for your enlightening presentation, sir. We appreciate the knowledge you have shared with us. Thank you again for your valuable insights.
Now I would like to invite Dr. Ilango, the Vice Principal of SRM Arts and Sciences Trichy, to honor our guest.
Any questions? No questions?
Physics Instruments Co. was founded by late Professor T. Krishnamurthy to cater the needs of educational institutions and research scholars. Their vision is to make affordable quality instruments in India for the development of science and technology. Now I hand over the session to Mr. C. Tandapani, sir. Sir, please.
morning, everybody. I am Dandapani from Physics Instruments Company, Chennai. We are manufacturers of instruments for physics laboratories. Now I'm going to give you an introduction about electrospinning. We are making electrospinning apparatus for making nanofibers from polymers. This electrospinning apparatus was first designed in India by Professor T.S. Natarajan. He is a professor of physics from IIT Madras, and he started his work sometime in early 2000. And then his publications were made in the field of nanoscience, and then he thought he should commercialize that particular instrument. Now we have successfully commercialized that instrument, and we have supplied to almost 200 institutions across India. This is our founder, Professor T. Krishnamurthy. He started this company in the year 1959 after retiring in the year 1959. So for all the elder senior members here, it doesn't mean that after we retire, our life comes to an end. So we still have a lot of things to be done. Here are some of the instruments what we manufacture, starting from decay resistant boxes to power supplies, Hall effect, ultrasonic interferometer, for all undergraduate and postgraduate level experiments. This electrospinning apparatus, we have called it as Eastwell Nano, and we have been manufacturing this since 2009. And this was developed in partnership with IIT Madras. This is Professor T.S. Natarajan. He is a very, physics enthusiast. He always, wherever he goes, he explains a lot of concepts on physics, and he has spent most of his life, either it can be in melt form or in solution form, and we apply high voltage, and that will get collected as nanofibers on any substrate. So here you see that we filled a polymer with this, the needle, and then we are applying high voltage, and it gets collected on the collector. The collector can be either a static collector or a rotary collector. When you apply high voltage to any polymer, there is an inverted cone shaped format which develops here at the bottom, which is called a Taylor cone. This Taylor cone is stretched because of the electrostatic force and gets collected on the collector. For collecting the fibers, you can use any type of substrate. You can use glass plates, metals, or any other plastic sheets, or even today we have developed techniques wherein we can directly spray it on living human persons. Property of not forming fibers, then you cannot make those fibers. So basically they have to be ductile, and then it should have the sufficient viscosity and surface tension so that it can be pulled down to form fibers. Then high voltage, that plays a very major role. High voltage is to overcome the surface tension and viscosity to be drawn down as fibers. The next question is, what are the parameters which are going to determine electrospinning? People will ask us, what is the dimension of the fiber? What is the morphology? All those things. So that is dependent upon several factors. That is, we call them as polymer characteristics and process parameters. Polymer characteristics includes molecular weight, viscosity, surface tension, and in process condition, what is the voltage? What is the flow rate in which you are going to dispense the solution, the diameter of the syringe, and the distance between the collector and the dispensing mechanism. Then you have other process parameters like temperature, voltage, humidity. All these things will also determine the fiber morphology. We have material properties, solution properties, and electrostatics, which are going to define the fiber morphology. So what are the materials we are going to electrospin? We are going to electrospin polymers, composites, ceramics, carbon, either carbon nanoparticles or carbon nanotubes, whatever it is. So the polymer properties which are going to determine, which are important for fiber morphology are the thermoplastic properties, the crystallinity, the molecular weight, the glass transition and temperature. All these factors will determine the fiber morphology. So polymers, you have synthetic polymers, natural polymers, and biodegradable. In synthetic, the most common polymers which are used are nylon, polyacrylonitrile, which we call as PAN, PVA, polyvinyl alcohol. These are the most commonly used materials for electrospinning in non-biodegradable. In biodegradable, you have polycaprolactone, PEO, PLA. All these are the common biodegradable polymers. And natural polymers, chitosan, collagen, cellulose, silicin, silk. Silk is extensively used in wound dressing applications. As I told you, the polymer solubility, then it has to be in melt or in solution form. The most common thing is used in solution form, as doing melt electrospinning is very difficult because with melt electrospinning you have to melt the solution and apply high voltage, and the viscosity of that material will be very high. So to overcome that, we use it in solution form, and for that you need an appropriate solvent. So we dissolve the material and we do the electrospinning process. Then the polymer structure, that also is very important. If you have a higher molecular weight, the solubility is less and the viscosity is more. So you require a suitable mix of viscosity for electrospinning. Very viscous material cannot be dispensed from the needle tip. So if the viscosity is very high, you require a very high voltage splaying. In splaying, what happens? The single strand comes out of the needle tip, they are drawn down. In the meantime, before the jet reaches the surface, the solution has to evaporate, the solvent has to evaporate. If it doesn't evaporate, the bulk material is going to come and get deposited. So the rate in which the solution has to evaporate is also very critical in determining or choosing the solution, the solvent now. So the rate of evaporation is affected by the vapor pressure, boiling point, specific heat. All the properties of the solvent are also very important in choosing the appropriate solvent. Solution conductivity. This conductivity of the solution is very critical because the particles have to be charged, only then they will be pulled down as fibers. If there is no electrical conductivity, then the solution will not at the same time that the basic structure of, the composition of your material is not affected. Your application should not be affected by adding of those particular material in a low conducting solution. Then the electrostatics, the distance between the